So I'm back. I haven't recorded a video in a while since probably before or right after I took the MPRE. Needless to say, we are getting to bar result time. And I'm sure some states have already released their results. Some states, like mine, still are in the process. I don't think Colorado releases its results until next week, until the end of next week. So I'm actually trying to plan my schedule around that a little bit. And so I wanted to talk about just a couple of things. I took the MPRE back in August, a couple of weeks after the bar exam. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the MPRE, about getting the results back from the MPRE, and then a little bit about how I chose to study for it and what worked and what didn't, and what I would probably do the next time around if I had to. And then wanted to talk just briefly about the bar exam results and sort of where I am walking into it, you know, a week from now, week and a half from now, and just sort of where my mind is and where my thinking is on that, and what my plan is, depending on the result. So the first thing is also for those of you who have not been following these videos over the summer or coming to them brand new, my name is Janet, and I graduated law school back in 2003 and tried to take the bar exam the first time, tried to take it a second time, did not pass either time. And so there's a lot of other videos probably linked to this one that'll come up about that journey, about some of the details about how I was studying, what was working for me, and how I decided to progress, taking the bar exam a third time several years after graduating law school. So that being said, I haven't posted all that much about the MPRE and about how I chose to study for it. Now, there's not a whole lot of information out there about studying for the MPRE, not nearly as much as there is for the bar exam. I think a lot of us kind of view the multi-state professional responsibility exam as just such a small part of the full bar exam experience. Many of us, and I remember this was the case for me, took it right out of law school or during law school, right when you're done with the professional responsibility course that most of us had to take as a requirement for our law school graduation. So most of us are fresh out of an entire semester of talking about these issues and really delving into ethical issues regarding the practice of law. And so most of us have had the purely academic experience of exchanging that information, and then we're tested on it in a very real way. Most states do require the MPRE in order to be admitted to their bar. Each state has its own score, just like the bar exam, that they expect to see for you to be considered passing. In Colorado, there's a handful of states that have sort of the high score that you have to get, and in Colorado is one of those. So Colorado requires that you have a score of 85. Now, unlike the bar exam, where you could look at the multi-state bar exam, the MBE, multiple choice questions and say, okay, there's 200 questions and I get 120 of those right, what is that going to scale to? What kind of score will I get? It's somewhat predictable. There's some variance over the years, but you can go with that raw score of how many questions you got right and translate that into roughly what a scale score might look like, and with some amount of predictability. Not so on the MPRE. In fact, if you were to Google it, there's not a whole lot out there in terms of guidance as to what percentage you should be getting right. At least, again, on the MBE, you can aim for getting 70% right, and you're probably going to be in safe territory. You're in less safe territory if you're in the 60% range, on and on. The MPRE is not as intuitive as that, and I'm sure that there are plenty of experts out there who can actually tell you a lot more than I can about how that's scaled and, you know, what your passing percentage really should be. You know, the problem with the MPRE is it starts at a score of 50. You know, you get 50 points for showing up. And then it can go all the way up to 150. But there's only 60 questions. So that's really small compared to the big bar exam. And so I think a lot of us do have a tendency to kind of blow off the MPRE, and I don't blame you, because a lot of us have had the ethics drilled into our heads. We know this stuff, but there's also there are very few circumstances where we feel comfortable saying that that's the hard and fast rule. We can say it, we as lawyers are trained to argue the other way, that it's not a hard and fast rule, and that we were actually okay in doing on, all these other things. So I am very proud to announce, though, that in taking the MPRE the first time out, with studying only about 12 to 15 hours, I did pass with a score of 92. So I met Colorado standard of 85. I met every state standard for a passing score, which is wonderful, because MPRE scores, at least for my state, are valid for 2 years from the date that you take it. So even if I don't pass the actual bar exam this time around, I won't have to retake the MPRE for another 2 years, which is really, really wonderful. So that being said, I did pass it the first time out. And, you have, the MPRE is given 3 times a year in March, August, and November. And it kind of staggers with when the bar exam is given. So in Colorado, it was about maybe 2.5 weeks after the bar exam. So you get through the bar exam and you think, okay, I've been studying 10 to 12 hours a day, 14, 16 maybe. And so you think you can just crank this out and you're going to stay in that study mode. I promise you, the day after the bar exam, you don't want to ever even pick up a book ever again. Like I have just now started reading for fun again. Because I just got so overread during the bar exam. So I can guarantee you that once you're done with the bar exam, you don't want to pick up another book. I don't care if it's only this big compared to the 10 volumes that you have sitting on your shelf. I didn't even want to move my bar exam books from my car back into my office, or put them into storage. I just didn't even want to touch them again. So looking at the MPRE book, which is so small compared to what you've just been finishing up reading, the tendency is just to blow it off. And the tendency is to put it off because you're tired and you're exhausted and you went through this huge stressful event and you want to kick back for just a little bit. And some of us were not able to kick back, A, because we had this other test coming up, but B, we have real lives that we have to get back to. And, some people have jobs that start immediately after the bar exam and whatnot. So here's what I did to pass the first time out. I did read the full Convisor review. I did my MPRE prep through Barbary. I read the full Convisor outline, which is sort of the mini outline that Barbary puts together. And I reserved the full outline just to go back to answer questions that the Convisor outline wasn't very clear about. So I was using the full outline just as reference material. And then I did a few practice questions online through the Barbary website. But I made it a point to do at least one full practice test. Now, unlike the bar exam where you were doing a practice test, a full-on practice test, at least once a week, if not once every few days, there's not that many practice tests to do for the MPRE. And I did one. I was pretty satisfied with my results. I sort of used my same bar exam standards of, aim for a 70% and as my guideline. And I think I got 65% on that full practice exam. I can't tell you for certain. All I know is that when I walked into the room, the room just feels looser. And so you feel like you can just let back a little bit, especially compared to the strict regimentation of the bar exam environment. And I had the pleasure, I guess, of sitting next to someone who has taken the MPRE 3 times already. So this was his 4th go and had not passed it yet. So that is to give you a little bit of perspective that this is not that easy of a test that you can just breeze through it and not study. You should study. And so in total, I spent maybe about 1 week studying, a few hours here, a few hours there, unlike the marathon sessions that I would go through with the bar exam itself. I mean, if you look at the bar exam, I've probably spent at least 450 hours studying, at least. And that's only what I was measuring. With the MPRE, I spent maybe 12 to 15 hours. So that's a huge difference between that. And again, the MPRE is one subject as compared to the bar exam, which is 16 subjects on average. So take that for what it's worth. And some people will need to study more. Some people obviously will need to study less, and that's fine. But I'm just telling you what I did and that I did pass the first time out. So here we are, beginning of October. Bar exam results will come out soon. And here's where I am with it. I think those of you who watched a video of me right before the bar exam, the night before, I talked about going through a family crisis. And yeah, I went through a family crisis and there was nothing I could do about it. It was what it was, and the timing was what it was. And I didn't let it deter me. I still walked in the next day. One of the nice parts about it is that I think it took some of the pressure off. That I had this overwhelming thing happening in my life that I had to pay attention to. Now, there were parts of the bar exam that were really distracting and really triggering for that particular event. So that was hard to push through. And here I am several months later, sort of evaluating how did I do? How did I take that? And I won't know until I actually get the results. I'm ready for anything. If I didn't pass, I know I had a really damn good reason why I didn't. But I don't want that anymore. One of the big things that I talked about in some of these videos is I basically don't want to have to use those justifications or excuses anymore for why I didn't pass. I want to be able to pass despite these other things happening in my life. And the lesson there is that life does continue. It does go on. And if this is something important to you, then you will find a way to manage going through this very stressful, traumatic test. And it is a traumatic test. It's very, very difficult. And even people who really know their stuff have difficulty passing this exam. And that's okay. But if it's important to you, you will find a way to pass it. You will find a way to show up and at least try, because, you know, what's the harm in trying? So if I get bad results on bar exam day, I'm okay with that, because again, I knew what I was going through. I knew what I was facing. I knew where my decisions probably were not the best and where my reasoning probably wasn't the best for all of this. And I have a plan. I know that after I get the bar exam results, I want to take about a week to just kind of process and let all the emotion flow through me and be done with it. And then pick myself back up again, put in my application a second time, or rather fourth time, and prepare to sit for the February exam. I know that I will get the guarantee for Barbary will kick in and all of that, so I don't feel bad about that. All the scary stuff that was about the bar exam, I've already passed through. And at that point, then it just becomes a matter of fine-tuning it enough for me to pass. And I that's not a position I've been in before. Now, even if I do pass, I still want to take a week off and not really talk to anyone about it. I don't want to talk about the bar exam. I don't want to talk about whether I passed or not. Yes, I'll be thrilled and excited and so, overwhelmed with positive emotion. But I don't know how much I really want to share that with people just yet. I'll make a video, but I don't know how much I really want to be surrounded by people at that point, because again, it's a matter of me kind of centering myself again to say, okay, you went through this really difficult time in your life and you went through this very difficult test and you passed, and that's great, but I still want to be able to process it. I still want to be able to take my time processing that. And it sounds weird to say that, but it's so very true, and I think it's very necessary to put yourself through the scenario of what will you do when you pass. I mean, that's a really difficult thing for me to imagine, because I never imagined myself passing before. I didn't imagine what the swearing in ceremony will look like. I never imagined what it'll look like to add attorney to my letterhead or anything like that. I just didn't imagine that. And so I want to take some time to really be okay with that and be at peace with that. And receiving good news is just as difficult sometimes as receiving bad news. Sometimes we psych ourselves out so much that, you know, we expect the bad news, but we don't even know what to do with ourselves with the good news. So that being said, that's sort of where I am right now. Next week, by chance, I have a lunch scheduled with a woman who talked me into doing this in the first place, my old advisor from law school. So I will have a lunch with her so I can process with her whether I passed or didn't, and we can just get caught up on that. And if I pass, then I know where I can move with my business and what I can do with Rose Solutions with my mediation work. And if I didn't, I will continue my mediation work and plan around my study time and how I'm going to need to study and what changes I'm going to have to make to my study habits. But I feel like it's inching toward passing, and that's sort of my I don't know if it's just hopeful thinking or whatnot, but that's where I am at the beginning of October. And I'm sort of planning my schedule around that a little bit so I can give myself enough space to process the result, no matter what that result is. So I hope that those of you who have taken the exam, those of you who are supporting your friends and family through the exam, take the same effort to give yourselves a little bit of space to process. Passing is a wonderful thing and should be shared, but share it your way and do it your way and process things the way that you need to. And give yourself some space to do that. And it's okay if you didn't pass. It is going to be okay. And if I didn't pass, you're going to see more videos from me about that, and that's fine. And if I did, you're going to see another video from me, and that's great. So I'll still be here. And I'll still be wanting to share my part of the story and what I have done and what has worked for me. So thank you so much for watching these videos and for being so supportive and so wonderful in your comments and your emails to me. I really have appreciated that. Thank you so much again, and best of luck to you.